I want to make a really serious video today based on a conversation I had with a female acquaintance the other day. We were talking about how more has to be done to protect women who have restraining orders against their exes, their boyfriends, etc. Now, a lot of states are trying to make it to where if you get a restraining order placed against you or you get charged with domestic assault, you immediately lose all your gun rights. They come in and take all your guns. Well, that's just a ridiculous thing to do. That is so anti-American. What they're proposing there is that you lose all your rights without due process. Just being accused of something doesn't mean you did it. Or even being that it might be likely that you do something isn't the same as doing it. In this country, people are innocent till found guilty. And you can't be stripped of your rights without due process. Someone can't just come in and say, well, we'll take your rights because your ex-girlfriend says you're dangerous. Or because someone says you smacked them or pushed them, whatever. That's not how it works. You have to actually be found guilty first. Well, at least that's the way it's supposed to be. There's so many things in this country that don't work that way anymore, but that's the way it needs to get back to. You can accuse anybody of anything in this country. That doesn't mean they did it. And plus, getting a restraining order doesn't mean that you proved they were dangerous. It just means that you showed that you had reason to believe they were dangerous. So none of that is the same as being given a fair trial and convicted of doing something wrong. So you shouldn't be stripped of your rights. These same people that propose this and support this, if you say to them, well, what if the government thinks you did something wrong? Should they be able to come in and strip you of your rights? If the IRS thinks you did something wrong, should they be able to come and take everything you own? If the government thinks that you're guilty of treason and they can't prove it, they don't even try to prove it, should they still be able to come and put you in prison? Of course, these people would say no to all that, but they're okay with stripping rights away from people as long as it's just about guns, because it's not really about protecting anyone, it's about being anti-gun. So the whole idea that you would strip someone of their Second Amendment rights based on an accusation or a fear, that's ridiculous. And anybody that believes in the Constitution and believes in the American way should believe that's ridiculous. But if you're someone out there that actually does want to do more to protect women, especially women who get restraining orders, well, there are some things we can do. The first thing we could do would be regarding guns. If you're a woman, and I'm going to say woman here because it's usually a woman who gets a restraining order. They make up the vast majority of restraining orders. So if a woman gets a restraining order against her ex, and she has a copy of that order that was granted by the courts, and let's say she lives in a state where there's a 5-day waiting period on a handgun. If she can show that document from the court that she has a restraining order, they should waive that waiting period. That should be a federal law that waiting periods are waived if someone has a legal court-signed restraining order against someone. That would be the first thing we could do to actually protect women who have restraining orders against exes. And I know I keep saying women and exes. It's not always going to be exes. It could be a family member, could be an ex-friend, could be whatever, and could be a man. But like I said, for the sake of illustration here, we're just going to say women and ex. And the second thing we could do is also regarding guns, and that is if you have a restraining order against you and then you go to that person's work, or even more importantly their home, and they blow your brains out, no questions asked. If you're ignorant enough to go to someone's work or home when they have an active restraining order against you, well, then we're going to assume you meant them harm. And if they take action against you, we're not going to hold them responsible. We're not going to be like, let's super scrutinize whether they needed to shoot you or not, which often happens in these cases. We're just going to say, well, they had a legal restraining order against that person. That person came up to their home, came to their front door, and they killed them. Big deal. It's over, so no fault. Let's face it, if you're willing to give an accuser the benefit of the doubt to the point where you're willing to strip the constitutional rights from somebody without due process, then you're willing to give them the benefit of the doubt if they ever have to pull the trigger in self-defense against that person, unless you're a giant hypocrite. Now, some people are going to say, well, what if they just came over to talk and try to work out their differences? People get back together. Well, if they've got a restraining order against you, use the phone. Don't go to their house, especially not if they invite you over. If you're actively in a conflict with an ex and they invite you over and you know they got a restraining order against you, might be a trap. So don't go. So have some sense. If you are the person who is named on a restraining order, don't go anywhere near that person. Now, I'm not saying they can hunt you down wherever you are and just blow your brains out, but if you go to their work or their home, there is reasonable evidence there and reason to believe that you meant to cause them harm. So like I say, the person that has the legally granted restraining order is going to get the benefit of the doubt by law as far as I'm concerned. I think that would be one of the best ways to protect women who have restraining orders against someone who might do them harm. So I think if we did those two things, waived waiting periods for people who have an active restraining order granted to them against someone else, and give them the benefit of the doubt legally if they ever have to defend themselves on their own property or at their own workplace. If we did those two things, we could actually help protect women. We can make guys think twice about going in after them if they knew, hey, they're going to blow my brains out and they're going to get away with it. If they knew that, then they probably wouldn't be so quick to attack them. Those would be ways to actually help solve the problem without stripping people of their constitutional rights without due process. So if you're actually interested in just protecting women and not really just anti-gun, I think you can see there are some ways you can go about protecting women without stripping people of their rights without due process.